And good evening. This is Mottek On Money, number one for your business and consumer news on Talk Radio 790 KBC. We're doing it live right here in the 5 o'clock hour in Los Angeles. Mottek On Money 5 nights a week for you, live on the air here on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide. It's kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com. Right to the serious news tonight on the Middle East crisis and its impact on the financial markets. We see the latest report from Reuters says Israel has razed sections of Gaza as it takes revenge for the terror attack over the weekend on Israel. We're seeing more military moves by the U.S. toward the region, with the USS Gerald R. Ford strike group sent to the eastern Mediterranean to bolster fighter aircraft present in the region. The U.S. enhancing its military force posture in the area. These moves taking place today, according to President Biden, who spoke about the crisis, saying that 14 Americans are among the dead following the attack over the weekend, and they are among Americans are among the hostages that have been taken by Hamas. I'll discuss the war in Israel tonight and what's happening there with Rabbi Marvin Heyer, the dean, founder, and CEO and president of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. Rabbi Heyer will be joining us live later this hour. As far as market reaction is concerned, up for the third day in a row here, with the Dow moving higher by 135 points, the S&P 500 up 22.5, and the Nasdaq gained 79 points. The Dow up nearly 2% now in the past three trading sessions, the largest three-day percentage advance since August 29th. Stocks moving higher as anxiety over the violence in the Middle East was counteracted by some comments from Fed officials today suggesting a recent tightening of credit conditions might reduce the need for another interest rate hike by the Federal Reserve. According to MarketWatch, Raphael Bostic, former USC professor, by the way, now president of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, said he doesn't think any more interest rate hikes are needed at this point. And Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari, a former California gubernatorial candidate on the Republican side, said today the recent run-up in U.S. long-term yields is puzzling. And Mary Daly, Dr. Mary Daly, the president of the San Francisco Federal Reserve, also speaking today. Bostic said the rest of the speakers follow Fed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson, who said yesterday the Fed could proceed carefully following the recent surge in Treasury yields. And the same day, the Fed Bank of Dallas President Lori Logan said the surge in long-term yields might mean less for additional increases in borrowing costs. This as the fixed-rate mortgage rates recently have hit 23-year highs. The yield on the 10-year note was not trading yesterday because of a national holiday, saw its yield dive today to 4.65%. Joining us live now on Your Money, the markets and the economy, the war in the Middle East. Joining us live now is Paul Dietrich, Chief Investment Strategist at B. Riley Wealth Management. Paul, thank you very much for taking the call here at this critical moment, really in history. Give us your reaction to what's happened here in the Middle East and the impact we're seeing in the financial markets, first of all.
Well, it has had an impact on financial markets. I mean, a week ago, before Hamas brutally invaded Israel, the stock market was going down primarily because bond yields were going up. And what that meant is that investors were demanding yield on our U.S. Treasuries, as we're basically in the last 4 or 5 months have created a new $2 trillion in deficit spending that, it's just adding to the debt. However, when the Hamas invaded Israel, people all over the world started to flock to the U.S. dollar and start buying U.S. Treasuries, actually. And when they did that, they were just trying to get the safest currency on earth. It was a flight to safety. And so yields came down. And when yields go up, the stock market almost always goes down. And when yields are going down, the opposite happens, and the stock market goes up. It doesn't really surprise me. I don't really think it had much to do with the various Federal Reserve members talking today, in that they weren't talking long term. Most of them, if you actually parse their speeches today, They were just talking about November and maybe December, one of them, that they might pause. But, the IMF came out, the International Monetary Fund came out this morning and raised the inflation rates for this year and next year that we're going to see globally. Now, and basically they're looking at 5.8% inflation. Now, as an economist, it's hard to figure out how the rest of the world inflation is going up and inflation is going to go down dramatically in the United States. I mean, most of our car parts, most of the things we buy at Walmart still are made overseas, and it's just hard to see all those prices going up at a 5.8% clip if the IMF is right, and we're not going to see any results of that in higher inflation in the United States.
On your live with Paul Dietrich, Chief Investment Strategist at B. Riley Wealth Management. Thank you for that thoughtful analysis. Paul, what about the odds of recession in all this? You've been certainly very cautious in our previous interviews about where this economy goes from here and also the markets. Give us your assessment of how things might unfold here now.
Well, I closely watch leading economic indicators. And there are leading economic indicators and there are lagging economic indicators. And the problem with a lot of newspapers and financial writers and cable news is that on the days when the leading economic indicators come out, and they're almost all negative right now, they're all going down. And then the next day, a lagging economic indicator will come out, and it's going up because it's lagging. And people get all excited and think we're going into a new bull market or the economy is stronger than it really is. You have to look at leading economic indicators. It's like new orders for manufacturing or for goods. They're made 9 months before Macy's sells them, at Christmas time. And so that's what I'm looking at, and almost everything looks bad. The Conference Board, which does the composite of economic indicators, they've now had their recession signal going for almost 12 months, which is within the margin. And I think it's going to come before the end of the year. We are going to have a recession. The average decline in the S&P 500 index since World War II has been 36% when we really go into a recession. And we're down, 10, 11% right now from the high of last year. So, we could easily see another 26, 30% drop in the stock market. And we are going to have a recession. The bull market that we had from March 9th, 2009 to, 2020, early 2022, that was 13 years. It was the longest bull market in history. And if you think that you can have the longest bull market in history and not have eventually a bear market recession, well, you know nothing about business cycles and you know nothing about the history of the stock market and, bull markets and recessions.
On the live with Paul Dietrich from B. Riley Wealth Management. And Paul, it is to be noted, there is certainly what's been described as the greatest bear market of all time in bonds, those safe bonds, which part of so many people's portfolio in that 60-40 mix, seeing a tremendous, about a 50% loss this year. What's your assessment of what's happening with the bond market and where things go from there?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. We've had for over a year now an inverted yield curve, and what that means is, and this is not normal, is that short-term bonds, treasury bonds, say 1 to 3 years, are paying a higher interest rate than 10-year and 30-year bonds, where you would expect they would pay a higher interest rate, a higher yield, simply because you're risking money for a longer period of time. The inversion is that we're now getting a much higher rate in short-term treasuries than in long-term treasuries, but there has recently been what they call a disinversion, which is where the rates are going up again. Historically, that has happened right before every recession. And so it's not a good thing for the economy, but it's also for people who own treasuries and bonds that they bought with lower yields in the past. It's been a disaster.
What a shame. And, of course, we're watching what's happening in the energy markets, given what's going on in the Middle East. We did see that spike in the price of oil yesterday by about 4%. Slight pullback today by 41 cents to 85 and change. What do you see ahead for commodity prices in all this, especially the price of gas and oil?
Well, it certainly raises the risk. The big problem that everyone's worrying about, and I live here in the Washington, D.C. area, and I was, talking with officials in the government all day today. And what the big problem is if this conflict spreads and it takes in Iran, where almost everybody believes they were certainly behind the funding of Hamas. The question is whether they were behind the actual planning of everything. And if the war should widen, and as I understand it, this administration is doing everything it can not to allow it to widen. But if we have to send basically, aircraft carriers into the waterways around Iran, and that's where all the Saudi oil comes from, all the other energy producers in that area. We don't buy Iranian oil, but Europe certainly buys from Saudi Arabia. That could be a disaster. The part of the reason is insurance companies simply won't insure, very expensive billion-dollar oil tankers. They're not going to be able to be insured to go through the Straits.
Get an inside look at Hollywood with Michael Rosenbaum.
Let's get inside of Anthony LaPaglia. My grandmother will be 95 in June. I haven't drank water in 95 years. Look at me. Do I need water? You look a little dehydrated.
A little bit. Your skin's a little dry. And when I do drink it, it bores me.
Yeah.
Just drinking it, I start to nod off.
Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, wherever you listen.
Hormuz there.
Of course, the Wall Street Journal flat out reported that Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last week, according to sources talking to the Wall Street Journal. In the meantime, it'll be interesting to hear what you're hearing there in Washington. We did hear from the State Secretary of State Anthony Blinken saying we have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there is certainty of a long relationship. What news are you picking up there in Washington today regarding this report?
Yeah, there's no question that Iran has, for a long time, supported and supplied Hamas. But the Wall Street Journal's reporting was so specific. I mean, it had, Iranian generals sitting in Beirut, telling them which day they should do this. But neither, according to Blinken and according to official sources in Israel, neither Israeli intelligence nor U.S. intelligence can confirm that. But everyone that I talk to believes that that's true. And they're mostly believe that it's because neither Israel, because it has enough to do just pacifying Hamas. I'm not sure that they want to have a a war with Iran at the same time, that both the U.S. government and Israel are they're either not looking very hard, because if the Wall Street Journal could get this intelligence, you would think that the U.S. and Israeli intelligence could pick up the same thing. Most people think they know it, and they're just trying to be diplomatic and not widen this war.
Certainly a very serious situation here at the moment, which we're all following very, very closely, and I so appreciate you coming to the line directly from Washington on all this. As far as what's next here, especially from an investment standpoint, where are the ports in the storm here, given the cards on the table, and any specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Yeah, I'm completely defensive. I have gold, I have commodities, including oil and gas. I have short-term treasuries, which are at least giving 5.2% annual return, and I have about 30% in my portfolio that is where I'm shorting the S&P 500.
Where do you see this market go from here?
Pardon?
Where do you see this market go from here? On
a daily basis, I try never to make predictions because I don't know, but I can tell you the directional trend is negative for the S&P 500. And over the next few months, I think we're going to see a recession coming before the end of the year. And when that hits, we'll see a 26-30% drop in the S&P 500.
I know you're not a big crypto guy, but certainly follow what's going on. What about the performance of the cryptos this year, coming off last year's crypto winter? This year it's been a bond winter, right? But last year we had the crypto winter, and we see a Bitcoin right now still hovering above 27,000 here at the moment. What are your observations on how crypto has been performing lately?
Yeah, I stay away from crypto completely. I believe the whole industry is run by a den of thieves, and I've been all day today. I've been watching the trial of the FTX trial and all of those people, and since there are no regulations, it's run either by clueless kids or just plain outright thieves, and the currency is actually backed by nothing. There's a good book out called Easy Money on crypto that I urge people to read, because eventually this is one of the bubbles that will be burst when the recession comes.
Thank you for that assessment. We have the harshest critics of crypto and the biggest fans of crypto. So thanks for expressing your view on it and for coming to the line tonight on what's happening with the markets and indeed around the world at this point. Paul Dietrich, Chief Investment Strategist at B. Riley Wealth Management, B. Riley headquartered here in Los Angeles. Paul Dietrich, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this evening.
Thank you.
Folks, the future of joint pain relief is here. It's called QC Kinetics, Advanced Regenerative Medicine. Amazing stuff. It's Frank Mottek here. Now, if you've been told more steroids or surgery are your only options, don't be so fast. Get a second opinion and learn more about how you can harness your body's own healing agents to attack that joint pain. I'm talking lasting pain relief. QC Kinetics doesn't mask the pain. These treatments go right to the very root of the problem using concentrated healing properties placed directly in your joint to restore and repair that damaged tissue. Imagine living your life this fall with no more pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, or back. No drugs, no surgery, and no downtime. Life's about motion, and QC Kinetics is giving people back their lives with these all-natural treatments. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. Call QC Kinetics, locations in Glendale, the city of Orange, Mission Viejo, now also in Costa Mesa. The number to call is 213-997-PAIN. 213-997-PAIN. Again, that's 213-997-PAIN. 790 KBC welcomes Adam Sandler to the Honda Center October 23rd. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-790-5222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-790-5222. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. The stock market ending the day higher today, up for the third day in a row. The Dow up 135 points at 33,739. The S&P 500 up 22.5 at 4,358. And the NASDAQ gained 79 points at 13,562. The yield on the 10-year note now 4.66%. Checking the cryptos now, we see Bitcoin up about $50 at 27,447. Ethereum up 9 at 1,568. And Doge at 6 cents. Price of oil pulling back today after that big run-up following the outbreak of violence in the Middle East. Crude oil futures down 41 cents at 85.97 a barrel in New York, and down 50 cents in London to 87.65 a barrel. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC following the latest news out of Israel, looking at the latest from Haaretz. Rocket barrages from Gaza and Lebanon targeting large swaths of Israel. The IDF says targeting Hamas brass is its highest priority. According to the latest reports, Israel says it has razed sections of Gaza as it takes revenge for the worst Hamas assaults in the 75-year history of its conflict with the terrorists. Hamas militants holding Israeli soldiers and civilians hostage had threatened to execute a captive for each home in Gaza hit, but as night fell, there was no indication that they had done so. A ground offensive now looks inevitable, according to the latest reports from Reuters. 14 Americans have been killed in the fighting in Israel, according to President Biden announcing today, and he confirmed more Americans are among those being held hostage by Hamas terrorists. Joining us live now, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, the Dean, Founder, and CEO and President of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. Rabbi Heyer, thank you very much for taking the call. I first want to say it's been an honor knowing you for the last 3 decades at least, and thank you very much for taking this call at this critical moment, and certainly our heart breaks with you about what's happened. I'm sure you have a direct line to Israel, so give us an update on what's happening.
Well, what's happening, as you know, is that for Hamas, and of course with the total encouragement of the Iranians, are basically committing crimes that the only time we saw before is during the Hitler regime, when children didn't make a difference. In the Hitler regime, if you saw it, and when they wanted to murder all the Jews, it included children taken to the concentration camps, gassed. Now we're seeing that we learned nothing from that example. Here we are again, and what is Hamas, and what are the Iranians doing? They're basically taking children, shooting them, destroying them. I mean, what human being would do a thing like that? The answer is they've reached the capacity of leaving humanity. They're not human beings. They're human animals. And they're human animals that have to be dealt with.
We're all juggling life, a career, and trying to build a little bit of wealth. The Brown Ambition podcast with host Mandy and Tiffany the Budgetnista can help.
If I do even consider lending, I always ask myself, will this solve the problem? So I know you don't have your money for mortgage because you don't have a job. So what happens next month? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about the next month. Now, it's another thing if you're like, hey, Tiffany, I have $1,000 left to pay my car, and then I'm car note free, and I'll be able to pay you back, the 3 months I used to pay my car note. That solves the problem.
Brown Ambition.
Wherever you listen.
In that manner, if we make the same mistake, the history will again say that once again, after the Hitler regime, along came Iran, and along came the Arab world, Hamas, and here we are back again to the early 1940s and the late 30s, and we've learned nothing from the Holocaust. That is what we have to do. What we have to do now is fight back and not give them a square inch. But I listened to President Biden today, and I have to say his remarks were right on target. The United States and the other Western powers, the time has come to say to the Iranians and to Hamas, your time is up. We're not dealing with you as if you're normal countries with a commitment to human dignity. You're dealing with the old Hitler.
On the air live with Rabbi Marvin Heyer. Rabbi, let me ask you about this as far as Iran's connection to all this. And I mentioned this earlier, the Wall Street Journal report that I'm sure you've seen flat out reports Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday, although the administration Secretary of State has said they've not received evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack. Give us your reaction to what we're hearing from the administration in contrast to the flat-out report in the Wall Street Journal, sir.
There is no question about it that Iran is behind this. They are orchestrating this. And unfortunately, the United States, we gave them the money, in terms of, and what do we think they're going to use the money? They're going to lie to us, and they're going to, as soon as possible, try to develop nuclear weapons. And the great tragedy is that the world needs to know if and when Iran acquires nuclear weapons, we should not be surprised at all, is that they will use them. And our planet would then be in danger. All of our children, all of our grandchildren, Jews, non-Jews. This has nothing to do with being religious or not religious. They'll attack atheists, and they'll attack Christians, and they'll attack Jews if we don't stop them. The time has come to put a stop to it. We either do it this time or we will regret it.
Rabbi Heyer, let me ask you this. We did hear from President Biden today saying that the U.S. supports Israelis' overwhelming response against Hamas, pure evil. Are we heading to a strike against the nuclear facilities in Iran?
Well, I believe that we should do everything in our power, whatever we could do to stop Iran, because Iran is not rational. They do not think the way human beings think. They think that somehow it's a great their religion calls for doing this. They will be rewarded. They don't believe in the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. It means nothing to the Iranians. We've got to be tough with the Iranians, and we've got to basically do it before they do it. What I'm saying is the United States needs to put an end to what they've now done in the Middle East without the United States and the allies. We can't have European, when I look at the Europeans were bailed out by the Americans. If it wouldn't have been for Winston Churchill and it wouldn't have been for the United States, all of Europe would have been under Adolf Hitler. We need to learn that. Here are the Iranians. If we don't stop them now, we will pay the supreme price tomorrow.
Rabbi Heyer, let me ask you this. We heard from Rabbi Abraham Cooper, also with the Simon Wiesenthal Center, who described the situation in Israel as Israel's 9/11, this horrific terror attack that started at that music festival and so forth. Israel, of course, has always had such a great reputation for homeland security, and how this unthinkable situation unfolded. Obviously, that's going to have to be discussed at this point.
Absolutely. And the United States government, I think that the United States, the American people, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, they're all going to vote the same way. If it's up to the people of the United States, all of them, I'm sure, after this, are going to say, we've got to do something about Iran. They will lie their way out, and if they accumulate nuclear weapons, be certain that they will use them. And therefore, we will pay the price if we don't stop them. And that is the only answer, the only logical answer I've never seen in my life, I've never heard of in the Western society, to see that children are taken away, killed. They are stabbed. They're a 5-year-old, an 11-year-old is shot. What kind of world is what's happening with planet Earth? Where are our leaders? Where's the leaders of the Western world to say, let's call an emergency meeting and put a stop to this? Tell Iran and tell everyone else, if you start with us, you won't be around long.
unthinkable horrors unfolding right before our eyes, Rabbi. Unbelievable. And certainly you've seen the support that you have and that Israel has here with a big rally in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles today, and New York, Berlin, swathed in the Israeli flag colors, the Brandenburg Gate. You probably saw that in Paris and throughout the world. What's your reaction to how the world has reacted to this?
No, I think that the Western world is now reacting. The United States and, the Western world is now reacting. And but the reacting for 48 hours or a week is not what is now needed. What is needed is a permanent reaction. It's very easy that 1 week and a couple of days, everybody is on the high. We hear that the right tone was set in Washington, the right tone is set by others. That's not going to do it. This is a long-term operation to get rid of these fanatics, to put a stop to it, because we've all learned from the Nazi Holocaust. That's what Simon Wiesenthal said. He used to say to me all the time, he said, the biggest problem is that we live on a planet where we forget too easily. He said, we must not forget too easily. When you see them starting and heading in the direction of Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels and Streicher, that's the time we have to hit them. We can't wait. And I believe that, I hope and pray that that's where we're headed for, that the entire Western world has woken up and is going to tell them, not again, never again.
Rabbi, thank you very much for taking the call at this critical moment. We'll keep an open line to you. Thank you very much, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, the Dean, Founder, and CEO and President of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. Rabbi, thank you very much for speaking with us here this evening.
Thank you.
Live coverage continues here. Mottek on Money on 790 KBC. Friends, if you're hurt in an accident, you need an experienced advocate, and Clark Fielding and his team of sharks at Fielding Law are on standby, ready to dive into your case. My friend Clark the Shark is fearless for justice and your go-to attorney when injured in an accident that wasn't your fault. Whether it's a car accident, slip, trip, fall, or any kind of personal injury, Fielding Law is here to make sure you get the care, attention, and compensation you deserve. Fielding Law can assess the circumstances of the case, negotiate tenaciously with the insurance companies, and if necessary, file a lawsuit and litigate to seek fair compensation on behalf of you, the injured party. An injury is a major disruption in your life. Medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, property damage, and other losses incurred as a result of the injury are part of the damages. Don't try and handle the process alone. You need an expert in the process. The team at Fielding Law are the ones to trust. Put Clark Fielding's number in your phone right now under the word accident. That number is 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Store owners are fighting back against smash and grab robberies in the Los Angeles area. One of the latest incidents was caught on video in Manhattan Beach, where a jewelry store employee took out a gun and shot at 5 suspects during a smash and grab robbery at the store over the weekend. The employee opened fire after what appears to be 6 robbers starting to smash glass cases with hammers, stealing jewelry and putting them in plastic bags. The robbers fled in several cars waiting outside. Nobody was hurt. Let's bring in the Honorable Dennis Zine now, former L.A. City Council member, longtime LAPD sergeant, and current reserve LAPD officer with 55 years of service to the City of Angels. The Honorable Dennis Zine, thank you very much for taking the call. Of course, we're all riveted to what's happening in the Middle East, but crime continues here in the Los Angeles area. Dennis Zine, give us your reaction to what's going on.
Well, what's happened in the Middle East, Frank, it spills over into the city of Los Angeles. We're going to have demonstrations which are going to occur. Both sides of the fence are going to be demonstrating. That's going to drain personnel resources from the police department. We've got to maintain order and discipline at those particular situations, which are obviously going to be popping up now because of what's happened in the Middle East. But nevertheless, we have the obligation, responsibility to respond to calls, whether it's a smash and grab or stolen car, whatever the case may be. So the resources of the LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, they're going to be stretched thin. We have to do extra patrols because of the territory that Los Angeles covers. We've got a very widespread environment when different nationalities, different religions, so we have to provide protection for those venues and the people. Saturday, when the Jewish population goes to temple, we need to make sure those worship facilities are secure. I know there'll be a lot of private security out that'll be doing that. So it really drains the resources when you have so many personnel just to handle the calls for service, the routine calls for service. And this is another component. And obviously the intelligence gathering, people who have information, you need to notify the police department of what's going on where you think situations may take place in a terrorist type activity. Remember what happened in Israel was no one anticipated this, and it reminds me of Pearl Harbor when that attack took place. It was premeditated, but they were not aware of it. And it's exactly what happened with all the intelligence, and I've been to Israel with the intelligence they have, the gathered information, how that took place without their knowledge, without the investigations that take place prior to that, the intelligence gathering, et cetera. It's a horrifying experience, but we see the carnage that now takes place. But as far as the city of Los Angeles, we're going to have routine crime takes place, smash and grabs, et cetera, stolen cars, robberies. But this is just another component which really drains the resources because we got to provide protection for everyone when they go out and demonstrate at Wilshire Boulevard in front of the federal building. That takes resources to maintain order and discipline. So this is a tense time for a lot of people, and the police department, LAPD, and other agencies will respond accordingly. But we need the public support and cooperation when these situations take place. And there'll be a lot of protests taking place in the near future just because of what we see happening in the Middle East.
Certainly, and it's been described as Israel's 9/11. Nobody expected our United States to be attacked, and those comparisons on 9/11 were being made to, like it was yesterday, Dennis Ein, when we were comparing what happened on 9/11 to the day that lived in infamy when the U.S. was attacked at Pearl Harbor. And unfortunately, with the police stretched so thinly, we're seeing crime continue here in the Los Angeles area with these smash and grabs. And now people are arming themselves. And we saw what happened there in Manhattan Beach over the weekend.
Yes, well, a lot of store owners are fed up and frustrated with the fact these smash and grabs continue. The jewelry stores, we've seen it on television. We've seen the videos. You can't use deadly force unless a life-threatening situation. Shoplifters, you can't start shooting shoplifters. There's got to be force or fear in the commission of that crime. So people got to be very cautious about pulling the gun and shooting people. But I think we're escalating to that because of the frustration. And again, these smash and grabs occur at these high-end stores, at jewelry stores. They're all vulnerable. A lot of the shopkeepers try to do what they can to defend themselves. But when you start using deadly force, you don't know what's going to happen, where that bullet's going to go. People need to be very, very cautious. I know a lot of people now want to get guns and they want to go out and protect themselves because they don't know where this environment of hostility and this environment where innocent people are taken away and killed and slaughtered. People get concerned about that. So in the city of the county of Los Angeles, you can get a CCW if you're a good, honorable citizen. You don't have a record. You can get that. But what they've put is so many restrictions when you have a CCW, the places that you can actually carry it and protect yourself. But what I advise people to do, if you're concerned, have one in your home. And someone breaks in your home and your life's threatened and your life is in danger, you can use deadly force as a last resort. But we don't want to see people go out and all of a sudden everyone's buying guns and carrying guns and driving around cars and someone cuts you off and you start shooting them. I mean, sometimes it seems to get really far out of control. But clearly it's a lot of tension, and a lot of people in California have relatives in the Middle East, in Israel. So there's a very strong connection between Los Angeles and Israel. And I've been to Tel Aviv, I've been to Israel. I know what security they have over there and how this ever happened. And when they analyze and decide how this happened, land, sea, and air at one time, this invasion, and then how they've been so brutally and kidnapping and killing people and babies. It's outrageous that it would resort to that. But the fact of the matter is, keep in mind, we're supposed to be a civilized society. You do have police and you have sheriffs and our patrol. Cooperate with them and don't stretch their resources.
Dennis Ein, thank you very much for joining us live here tonight. The Honorable Dennis Ein, former LA City Council member, current Reserve LAPD officer, 55 years of service to the City of Angels. Thank you very much. The 790 KBC News Blitz next.
Former Navy SEAL Mike Ritland keeps it real on the Mike Drop podcast. Former Navy SEAL and current CrossFit King Dave Castro.
Is there one thing that you took away from the SEAL community that you apply kind of in your everyday life?
Here's the reality. So getting out was a no-brainer. Financially able to provide for my family much better with CrossFit than I was with the Navy. But if it hadn't been for CrossFit, I for sure would have stayed in for 20. I loved what I did.
Mike Drop. Raw, unfiltered, intellectually sound. Wherever you listen.